Khachanov halted Alexander Zverev's run in Toronto with a gritty 6-3, 4-6, 7-6 win in a nearly 3-hour semifinal that tested both players mentally and physically. The match was a tense affair marked by long rallies, just 2 breaks of serve, and a dramatic conclusion in a third-set tiebreak, where Khachanov saved a match point before reeling off 5 straight points from 1-3 down to book his place in the final. Khachanov, who had lost 3 straight matches to Zverev while winning just 14 total games, approached this contest with a clear sense of purpose. Despite hitting 17 unforced forehand errors and serving inconsistently at times, the Russian kept his composure when it mattered most. Zverev, meanwhile, struggled to find rhythm on his backhand, committing 22 unforced errors on that wing and delivering another 7 double faults, replicating his shaky serving performance from the quarterfinals. On the most crucial point of the match point in the third set, Zverev failed to capitalize. Khachanov gave him a second serve to attack on the ad court, but the German sent a passive backhand straight into the net. It was a defining moment in a match that symbolized the contrast between Khachanov's resilience and Zverev's fragility under pressure. Zverev admitted as much post-match, saying he missed balls he wished he hadn't and that he wasn't feeling the ball well. He tried to frame the loss as part of the process, noting he'd get another shot soon in Cincinnati, but the pattern is becoming harder to ignore. For a player ranked 3rd in the world, Zverev's 2025 season has been underwhelming. His Australian Open final and Roland Garros quarterfinal runs benefited from relatively soft draws, and outside of those, his year has lacked statement performances. Yes, his win ratio is not bad, but he simply does not seem to have that factor that Alcaraz or Sinner possess. Even in Toronto, his earlier wins were labored, and the sense of inevitability around another collapse grew with each round. In contrast, Khachanov is enjoying a quiet but meaningful resurgence. This is his first Masters 1000 final since 2018, when he beat Zverev, Thiem, and Djokovic en route to the title in Paris. Since April, he has made 5 quarterfinals and continues to build momentum after a solid showing at Wimbledon. His win over Zverev also marks just his 3rd against a top 3 opponent in 24 attempts, underlining the significance of this breakthrough. With the victory, Khachanov moves to 12th in the live ATP race to Turin, positioning himself within reach of the season-ending finals. The match itself was scrappy, at times even chaotic, with both players engaging in what felt like an unclutch off, as some viewers put it. But it was Khachanov who held his nerve. Zverev's delay-heavy routine and inability to take initiative in key moments, especially in the tiebreak, left fans frustrated and critics questioning his mental toughness. While some still view him as a top contender, the flaws in his game are becoming more visible, and the pressure of delivering in big moments continues to haunt him. After his latest stinging loss, Alexander Zverev stood in front of the media and said all the right things. He acknowledged his struggles, noted he had chances, and pointed forward. "That's tennis," he said. "There's another tournament next week. That tournament is Cincinnati, and while it may not offer the prestige of a Grand Slam, it offers something Zverev needs even more right now. A chance to reset, to rebuild confidence, and to test whether he's capable of adapting under fire." Zverev's loss to Khachanov in Toronto was not just another defeat. It was a mirror held up to patterns that have long plagued his career. A match point squandered, a passive backhand into the net, a sluggish start to the deciding tiebreak. The same tempo, the same hesitation, the same outcome. It's these moments where champions rise and contenders stall that continue to haunt him. But this is also where the opportunity lies. Cincinnati isn't just another Masters 1000. It's the last major test before the US Open. And for Zverev, it's a mental battleground, a tournament that could either fortify his belief or deepen the doubts. After losing in the Toronto semifinals despite being the higher-ranked player, despite leading the third-set breaker, despite getting a second serve on match point, Zverev cannot afford to brush this off as bad luck or just a tough day. Cincinnati must be different, not necessarily in terms of silverware, though a title would be massive, but in the way he competes, adjusts, and responds to adversity. And this is where the focus must shift. The story around Zverev is no longer just about his talent or his ranking. It's about whether he can rise to the psychological challenge of elite tennis, the late-stage pressure, the make-or-break points, the uncomfortable moments where you must dictate rather than survive, the kind of resilience that makes the difference between good and great, between a career of almosts and one that delivers when it counts. In Cincinnati, Zverev will likely face a stacked field, with Alcaraz hungry, Sinner sharp, and rising threats like Shelton or Rune gaining ground. That's precisely the kind of environment he needs. A draw filled with firepower, requiring him to stay locked in from the first round. Because it's not just about results now, it's about showing that when the tension rises, he has more than just the strokes to win. He has the belief, the bravery, the willingness to take the match rather than wait for it to be handed to him. And if he can do that, if he can deliver 2 or 3 strong performances in Ohio, even without lifting the trophy, then he heads to New York with something he hasn't had in a while: real momentum. Not rankings-based momentum or past reputation, but the lived internal confidence that only comes from facing your ghosts and winning anyway. The 2025 US Open is not just the next major on the calendar. For Zverev, it's the tournament that may define the next phase of his career. He has been here before, literally and figuratively. A finalist in 2020, 2 points from the title. A semifinalist in 2021, pushing Djokovic to 5 sets in the greatest pressure cooker of Novak's career. And yet, 4 years later, he still arrives in New York with the same question mark hovering above him. Can he actually win a slam? For all his accolades, an Olympic gold medal, multiple Masters titles, a Tour Finals crown, over 500 career wins, Zverev remains the best player of his generation without a Grand Slam title. At 28, and with Sinner and Alcaraz on top of their game, and getting better, the question is, can he even do it? There is still time, yes, but time no longer stretches ahead of him like it once did. The players behind him are no longer juniors. They are winning majors, dominating big moments, shifting the balance of power in men's tennis. The players ahead of him, like Djokovic and Medvedev, are not handing over the baton without a fight. There is no void for Zverev to walk into. There is only a war to be won, match by match, point by point. This is why Cincinnati matters. It's the only place left to tune up not just his game, but his mindset. It's where he can experiment with risk, with tempo, with letting go of the conservative patterns that have hurt him. Can he flatten out his backhand earlier in rallies? Can he stop retreating behind the baseline on second serve returns? Can he go for it on 30-all instead of waiting until deuce? These aren't stylistic questions anymore. They are essential, and they tie directly into what's perhaps the most promising and untested development of his season, the possible involvement of Tony Nadal. Zverev's decision to train at the Rafael Nadal Academy this summer and possibly work with Tony Nadal could be more than symbolic. It could be transformative. For years, Zverev has maintained one of the most tightly controlled teams on tour, centered around his father and brother. That stability has provided familiarity and comfort, but it's also left little room for outside perspective. And Zverev's game, while technically sound, has stagnated tactically. The same patterns, the same struggles, the same responses to stress. Bringing in a new voice like Tony Nadal, someone who shaped one of the most mentally disciplined players in history, is a signal that Zverev might finally be ready to evolve. Tony is not a magician. He won't turn Zverev into Rafa, but he can instill clarity, accountability, and a deeper sense of purpose in big moments. He can challenge Zverev's on-court habits, his match preparation, and most importantly, his default reactions when pressure peaks. That's what Zverev needs now, not a technical overhaul, but a mental recalibration. Because the truth is this, Zverev has everything he needs to be a Grand Slam champion. He has the serve, the ground strokes, the movement, the experience. What he lacks is the ability to consistently close. And that is a matter of mindset, not mechanics. The coming weeks will either reinforce or rewrite the story of Zverev's 2025 season. He began the year strong, a final in Melbourne, a quarterfinal in Paris, but those runs were built on relatively soft draws. Since then, the big match wins have dried up, and the question is no longer whether he can win smaller matches, it's whether he can own the moments that matter most. Cincinnati and then New York are where that question will be answered. If he reaches the US Open quarterfinals and beats someone like Sinner, Alcaraz, or Medvedev en route, the conversation changes. If he holds firm in a 5th set, or saves match points, or plays a gutsy tiebreak under the lights, fans will start to believe again. And maybe more importantly, so will he. But if he falls early, or worse, lets another winnable match slip through his hands, then the doubts will deepen, not just outside, but inside. Because the clock is ticking. Zverev's talent has bought him more time than most, but that credit is almost spent. The next phase of his career cannot be defined by proximity to greatness. It has to be about arrival, about seizing what has always seemed within reach but somehow stayed out of his hands. The window is still open, but it's no longer wide.